Every great transformation begins with a simple shift in thought. The world you see around you is not random and it is not outside of your control. It is the reflection of the ideas you accept as true within your own mind. If you want to manifest $50 million, the first step is not working harder, chasing opportunities, or hoping that luck finds you. The first step is changing the way you think about yourself and your reality. The thought process that creates massive wealth is the realization that your inner assumptions are the cause of everything that appears in your outer world. Once you understand this, manifestation stops being a mystery and becomes a natural result of conscious thinking. Reality is far more responsive to your inner world than most people realize. Every experience, every circumstance, and every condition that appears in your life is closely connected to the thoughts and beliefs you repeatedly accept as true. Your mind is not just a place where ideas pass through, it is the creative center from which your life is formed. The assumptions you hold about yourself, about money, about success, and about what is possible quietly shape the events that unfold around you. When a belief is repeated often enough, it becomes a dominant state of consciousness, and that state begins projecting itself outward into the physical world. In this way, reality acts like a mirror, faithfully reflecting the inner patterns of thought that live within you. Many people believe that the outer world controls their thoughts, but the deeper truth is that the inner world is the true cause, and the outer world is simply the effect. When a person constantly thinks thoughts of limitation, insecurity, or lack, those thoughts gradually harden into beliefs. Once these beliefs are accepted, the mind begins filtering reality through them. Opportunities may pass by unnoticed, confidence may weaken, and situations may seem to confirm the original belief of limitation. It then appears as if life itself is responsible for these outcomes, when in fact life is only echoing what the mind has already accepted. The mirror is not creating the image, it is only reflecting what stands before it. The moment a person understands this principle, something powerful begins to shift. Instead of feeling like a victim of circumstances, they begin to realize that they are the source of the assumptions shaping their world. If reality reflects inner thoughts, then changing those thoughts changes the reflection. This does not mean forcing positive words while secretly feeling doubt. It means gently and consistently adopting new assumptions about who you are and what your life can become. When a new belief is entertained repeatedly, it begins to feel natural. As it becomes natural, the mind accepts it as truth, and the world slowly begins to mirror that new truth. Imagine someone who starts to see themselves as capable, successful, and supported by life. At first, the idea may feel unfamiliar because it contradicts old patterns of thinking. But as the person continues to think from that new identity, something remarkable happens. Their posture becomes more confident. Their decisions become clearer. Their reactions to challenges become calmer and more creative. The world around them begins to respond differently because their inner state has changed. Opportunities that once seemed invisible suddenly appear. Conversations lead to unexpected connections. Situations that once felt difficult begin resolving more smoothly. What looks like luck from the outside is often the natural reflection of a transformed inner belief. The same principle applies to wealth, success, relationships, and every other area of life. The assumptions you consistently accept become the blueprint for what appears around you. If someone repeatedly believes that abundance is natural and that opportunities are always unfolding, that belief becomes the lens through which they experience life. Their mind begins expecting favorable outcomes. And because expectation directs attention and action, circumstances begin aligning with that expectation. Life appears to cooperate with them because their inner world has already accepted success as normal. This understanding places extraordinary power back into your hands. Instead of waiting for external events to change your mood, your confidence, or your future, you begin shaping your internal state first. By choosing thoughts that reflect the reality you wish to experience, you slowly shift the reflection that appears in the world around you. Reality does not argue with your dominant beliefs. It quietly organizes itself around them. When you change what you consistently believe within, the mirror of life begins to show a completely different picture. One of the most powerful shifts a person can make on the path to manifestation is learning to stop thinking from lack. Most people unknowingly spend their days thinking about money from the perspective of not having enough of it. They worry about bills, calculate limitations, and constantly remind themselves of what they cannot afford. Even when they imagine wealth, it is often done from the position of longing rather than possession. This mental habit quietly reinforces the idea that money is distant and unavailable. As long as the mind continues to think from this place of absence, reality faithfully reflects that same absence. Manifestation begins the moment this pattern is interrupted. Instead of focusing on what is missing, the mind must begin operating from the feeling and perspective of already having what it desires. This does not mean pretending in a forced or unrealistic way. It means allowing your thoughts to shift into the calm certainty that the wealth you desire is already part of your life. When the mind stops chasing money and begins thinking from ownership, the entire inner experience changes. Stress begins to fade, urgency disappears, and a quiet sense of security starts to take its place. Think about how a person behaves when they already possess great wealth. Their thoughts about money are very different from someone who feels financially limited. They do not constantly worry about survival or question whether opportunities will appear. Their decisions come from confidence rather than fear. They feel relaxed when discussing investments, business ideas, or future plans. This mindset is not created by the money itself. It is the state of consciousness that naturally accompanies the belief of already having it. When you adopt this way of thinking, before the physical evidence appears, you begin aligning your inner world with the reality you want to experience. The mind is incredibly responsive to the feelings that accompany thoughts. When you repeatedly think about not having money, the feeling of lack becomes familiar and dominant. That emotional state then influences your behavior, your choices, and even the opportunities you notice around you. However, when you begin thinking from the state of already possessing abundance, a completely different emotional atmosphere forms within you. Instead of anxiety, there is calm assurance. Instead of doubt, there is expectation. Instead of frustration, there is patience and trust. This shift in feeling is what begins to influence the external world. When the mind consistently accepts the idea that wealth already exists in your life, it stops resisting abundance. Your subconscious begins treating prosperity as your normal condition. Because the subconscious influences perception, creativity, and decision making, it begins guiding you toward ideas and actions that support that new identity. You may suddenly feel inspired to explore a new opportunity, start a project, or connect with someone who leads you in an unexpected direction. What seems like coincidence is often the result of your mind aligning with the reality it has already accepted internally. It is important to understand that thinking from possession does not mean ignoring the present moment or denying current circumstances. Instead, it means refusing to let those circumstances define your identity. You are no longer reacting to life as someone who lacks wealth. Instead, you are responding as someone whose financial abundance is already part of their reality. Over time, this perspective becomes natural. You begin making decisions from confidence rather than fear, and your expectations of life shift toward expansion rather than limitation. As this new thought pattern becomes consistent, the outer world gradually begins to mirror the change. Opportunities appear more frequently, connections strengthen, and financial growth begins to unfold in ways that feel surprisingly natural. What once seemed difficult starts happening with less struggle because your mind is no longer pushing wealth away through thoughts of lack. By simply shifting from thinking about money, you do not have to thinking from the certainty of already possessing it. You activate the inner state. You activate the inner state that allows manifestation to begin unfolding. One of the most transformative shifts a person can make is moving from the mindset of trying to become wealthy to fully adopting the identity of someone who already possesses great wealth. Many people spend years chasing the idea of becoming rich, but in doing so, they unconsciously reinforce the belief that wealth is always somewhere in the future. The mind stays focused on effort, struggle, and the distance between the present moment and the desired outcome. This constant striving keeps the feeling of wealth just out of reach. True manifestation begins when the focus changes from becoming wealthy to being the person who already lives in that reality. Identity is one of the most powerful forces shaping human behavior and experience. Every person carries an internal image of who they believe they are. This self image influences decisions, expectations, reactions, and even opportunities that appear in life. If someone sees themselves as a person who is always trying to achieve financial success, they will continue operating from effort and uncertainty. But when someone adopts the identity of a person who already possesses extraordinary wealth, their thoughts and emotions naturally begin to align with that new self image. The shift may seem subtle, but it changes everything. Imagine for a moment what life would feel like if $50 million were already yours. The first thing you would notice is a deep sense of stability and freedom. Financial pressure would disappear and your mind would feel calm and secure. You would approach decisions with confidence because survival would no longer feel like a concern. Conversations about opportunities, investments, and ideas would feel exciting rather than stressful. Your attention would shift away from limitations and toward possibilities. This is the mindset of someone who, Alpha, Adi lives in abundance. And it is this state of mind that must be adopted internally before it appears externally. Adopting the identity of wealth is not about pretending or acting arrogantly. It is about quietly accepting a new concept of yourself. When this identity becomes natural, your inner dialogue changes. Instead of worrying about money, your thoughts begin reflecting the certainty that your financial life is already secure. Instead of hesitating when opportunities appear, you begin evaluating them from a place of confidence. You think more clearly, make decisions more calmly, and approach life with the relaxed assurance of someone who knows they are supported by abundance. This identity also influences the way you feel throughout the day. People who believe they must struggle for wealth often carry tension, doubt, and urgency in their thoughts. But someone who sees themselves as already wealthy moves through life with a sense of ease. Their mind is not trapped in fear about the future. They are able to focus on creativity, inspiration, and meaningful action. That emotional atmosphere within the mind becomes extremely powerful because it begins shaping how the world responds to them. When you consistently think, feel, and respond as the person who already has $50 million, your subconscious begins accepting that identity as your true state. The subconscious mind influences countless aspects of your life, including perception, behavior, and intuition. Once it accepts a new self image, it begins guiding you towards circumstances that match that identity. Ideas begin appearing more frequently, opportunities feel more visible, and people who resonate with your vision may enter your life. The world begins responding differently because you are no longer operating from the identity of someone trying to reach wealth. Over time, this new identity becomes completely natural. You no longer need to remind yourself to think differently because the feeling of abundance becomes part of your normal perspective. Decisions come from confidence rather than fear, and life begins unfolding with a sense of flow rather than struggle. What once seemed like a distant dream slowly becomes a reflection of the identity you accepted within yourself. By choosing to adopt the identity of wealth, before the physical evidence appears, you begin allowing your inner state to shape the reality that eventually surrounds you. True manifestation begins to unfold when the mind moves beyond wishing and enters the quiet certainty of ownership. Many people think about wealth with excitement or hope, but deep within, they still feel that the money is far away from them. They imagine receiving it someday, yet their emotional state continues to reflect uncertainty. As long as the mind approaches wealth with hope or desperation, it continues to reinforce the idea that the desired outcome is still missing. The real shift happens when a person begins to feel the calm confidence that the wealth they desire already belongs to them. Certainty has a very different emotional tone from hope. Hope carries anticipation mixed with doubt, while certainty carries peace and stability. When someone truly believes something is already theirs, they do not constantly question when it will arrive or whether it will happen. Instead, their mind becomes relaxed and assured. This emotional state is extremely powerful because it signals to the subconscious mind that the desire has already been fulfilled. Once the subconscious accepts this feeling as natural, it begins influencing thoughts, actions, and circumstances in ways that gradually align the outer world with the inner conviction. Imagine the emotional difference between wanting money and owning it. When a person wants money, their mind often becomes restless. They worry about time, effort, and obstacles. They may feel anxious when opportunities appear because they fear making mistakes. Their thoughts constantly return to the question of how and when wealth will come into their life. In contrast, someone who already possesses great wealth experiences a completely different internal atmosphere. Their mind is calm, secure, and confident. They are not concerned about proving their worth or rushing toward financial success. Instead, they operate from a stable sense of abundance that quietly influences every decision they make. Feeling the certainty of ownership means allowing your mind to rest in that calm state of financial security, even before the physical evidence appears. It means thinking about your life from the perspective of someone whose wealth is already established. When you consider your future, you do so with the relaxed expectation that resources are always available. When opportunities arise, you evaluate them with clarity rather than fear. Your thoughts about money begin to feel natural and effortless rather than tense or desperate. This emotional shift gradually becomes your dominant state of mind. The subconscious mind responds strongly to feelings that are repeated and accepted as normal. If someone constantly feels stress and lack around money, the subconscious treats that feeling as the natural condition of life. It then guides behavior and perception in ways that reinforce that belief. However, when the feeling of ownership and financial certainty becomes familiar, the subconscious begins accepting abundance as the new normal. It starts influencing intuition, creativity, and awareness in ways that support the reality of wealth. Ideas may come more easily, solutions appear more clearly, and opportunities feel more noticeable because the mind is no longer filtered through. Fear. Another powerful aspect of emotional certainty is that it changes how you interact with the world. People naturally respond to confidence and stability when you carry yourself with the calm assurance of someone who knows their life is secure. Your communication becomes clearer and your decisions become more decisive. This often leads to stronger relationships, better collaborations, and more meaningful opportunities. What may appear to others as luck or coincidence is often the natural result of a mind that has already accepted abundance as a fact. Over time, the feeling of ownership becomes completely natural. You stop trying to convince yourself that wealth will come because your inner world already accepts it as reality. The mind no longer argues with doubt or struggles with fear. Instead, it rests in the quiet confidence that your financial life is already expanding and unfolding. As this emotional certainty becomes stable within you, the outer world gradually begins reflecting the same stability and abundance. The calm belief that your wealth already belongs to you becomes the foundation upon which manifestation begins to take physical form. The human mind is deeply influenced by repetition. Thoughts that pass through the mind once or twice may leave a temporary impression, but thoughts that are repeated consistently begin to sink deeper into the subconscious. Over time, these repeated ideas transform into assumptions, and those assumptions quietly shape the way a person experiences life. The subconscious mind does not carefully analyze whether a belief is logically correct or incorrect. Instead, it accepts what is impressed upon it through persistent thinking and emotional conviction. Once an idea is accepted at that deeper level, it begins influencing perception, behavior, and even the circumstances that seem to appear in a person's world. Most people unknowingly train their subconscious to expect limitation. They repeatedly think about financial struggles, obstacles, and the difficulty of achieving success. 2. Objective quality of achieving success. Even casual thoughts, such as worrying about bills, doubting opportunities, or expecting things to go wrong, become powerful when they are repeated daily. The subconscious absorbs these patterns and begins treating them as the normal condition of life. Because the subconscious influences how a person reacts to situations, these beliefs often shape choices and expectations in subtle ways. Opportunities may be overlooked, confidence may weaken, and the world may appear to confirm the belief that abundance is difficult to obtain. However, the same principle that allows limitation to grow can also be used to cultivate abundance. When a person begins consistently thinking from the perspective of wealth and success, the subconscious gradually starts accepting that perspective as truth. This does not require force or strain. Instead, it involves gently returning the mind to the idea that prosperity and financial expansion are natural parts of life. Each time the mind entertains this thought with calm certainty, it strengthens the impression being formed in the subconscious. Over time, what once felt like imagination begins to feel familiar and believable. As the subconscious accepts this new assumption, something important begins to change internally. Thoughts about money no longer trigger fear or tension. Instead, they become associated with confidence and possibility. The mind begins expecting positive outcomes and favorable circumstances. Because expectations influence awareness, a person who believes in abundance often begins noticing opportunities that were previously ignored. Ideas that once seemed unrealistic may suddenly feel achievable. This shift is not the result of external forces alone. It is the natural response of the mind aligning itself with the belief it has accepted. The subconscious also plays a major role in guiding actions and decisions. When it accepts wealth as a natural part of life, it begins influencing behavior in subtle but powerful ways. A person may feel inspired to explore new ventures, connect with people who share similar ambitions, or pursue ideas that previously felt intimidating. These actions often arise without conscious effort because the subconscious is now operating from a new assumption. Instead of reinforcing doubt and hesitation, it supports confidence and expansion. Another important aspect of this process is emotional familiarity. The subconscious responds strongly to feelings that accompany thoughts. When thoughts of abundance are repeatedly paired with feelings of calm confidence and certainty, those emotions become connected to the idea of wealth. Eventually, the mind begins experiencing prosperity not as a distant dream, but as a natural expectation. This emotional shift is powerful because it changes how a person interacts with the world. They speak differently, make decisions more boldly, and approach opportunities with greater clarity. Consistency is the key to allowing this transformation to occur. The subconscious learns through repetition. So, the more often the mind returns to the assumption of abundance, the stronger that belief becomes. Gradually, the identity of a prosperous and successful person begins to feel completely normal. Doubt loses its influence because the subconscious has already accepted a new definition of reality. When the mind consistently assumes wealth as a natural condition of life, the subconscious begins organizing thoughts, actions, and perceptions in ways that align with that assumption. Over time, the external world begins reflecting the inner belief that abundance is not something rare or distant, but a natural part of your reality. The opportunities that appear in a person's life are often closely connected to the state of mind they consistently occupy. Many people believe opportunities are random or limited to a fortunate few. But in reality, the mind plays a powerful role in shaping what we notice, pursue, and attract. Your inner state acts like a filter through which you experience the world. When the mind is dominated by doubt, fear, or limitation, it becomes difficult to recognize possibilities even when they are right in front of you. But when your inner state shifts toward confidence, abundance, and certainty, the way you interact with life begins to change. And opportunities that once seemed invisible start appearing naturally. Every day, countless possibilities move through the world around us: ideas, partnerships, investments, innovations, and unexpected connections. Yet, not everyone notices them. The difference often lies in mindset. A person who expects struggle may unconsciously dismiss promising ideas because they assume success will be difficult or unlikely. They may hesitate when opportunities arise, overanalyze possibilities, or fail to act because doubt clouds their judgment. In contrast, someone who believes abundance is natural approaches life with openness and curiosity. Their mind is alert to possibility rather than focused on limitation, and this shift alone dramatically increases the chances of recognizing valuable opportunities. When your inner state changes, your perception of the world begins to shift as well. Instead of seeing obstacles first, you begin noticing solutions. Instead of assuming something will not work, your mind begins exploring how it might succeed. This subtle change in perspective allows creativity and intuition to function more freely. Ideas may come unexpectedly during quiet moments. Conversations may spy. Arc inspiration and ordinary situations may reveal opportunities that previously went unnoticed. What looks like sudden luck is often the natural result of a mind that is aligned with possibility. Another powerful effect of a positive inner state is the way it influences your behavior and communication. When someone carries confidence and clarity, they naturally express themselves more effectively. Their words are more decisive, their ideas are communicated with conviction, and their actions demonstrate belief in their own vision. People are naturally drawn to this kind of energy because it signals stability and potential. As a result, connections begin forming more easily. Conversations may lead to collaborations, introductions may lead to partnerships, and relationships may develop that open doors to entirely new directions. Helpful connections often appear when a person is mentally aligned with the reality they desire. Someone who consistently thinks from a place of abundance begins interacting with the world differently. They become more willing to share ideas, explore possibilities, and engage with people who have similar ambitions. These interactions often lead to unexpected opportunities. A casual meeting might turn into a business venture. A simple conversation might lead to an investment opportunity, or a shared idea might grow into something far greater than originally imagined. The alignment of mindset creates the conditions where these connections can occur. In addition, a confident inner state makes it easier to act when opportunities appear. Many people encounter promising situations but hesitate due to fear or self doubt. When your mindset is aligned with success, hesitation becomes less powerful. You evaluate opportunities more clearly and respond with greater decisiveness. This willingness to act allows ideas to move forward rather than remaining only possibilities. Action taken from confidence often attracts further opportunities, creating a cycle of growth and expansion. As this process continues, life begins to feel more fluid and supportive. Opportunities seem to appear at the right moments. Helpful people enter your path, and ideas unfold in ways that feel natural rather than forced. This does not mean challenges disappear, but it does mean your perspective allows you to navigate them with creativity and resilience. The world begins reflecting the inner belief that progress and abundance are possible. When your state of mind is aligned with success and prosperity, ideas, opportunities, and valuable connections begin to flow more easily, gradually shaping a reality that matches the vision you hold within. One of the most important elements in the process of manifestation is persistence in the new way of thinking. It is easy to feel confident and abundant for a short period of time, especially when you are inspired or motivated. However, true transformation happens when that new thought process becomes consistent, even when external circumstances do not immediately reflect the change. Many people begin shifting their mindset toward abundance, but quickly return to old patterns when they see temporary evidence that appears to contradict their desired outcome. The key to real change is learning to remain loyal to the new assumption of wealth, regardless of what the outer world currently shows. The outer world often reflects past thinking rather than present thinking. Circumstances that exist today may have been shaped by beliefs and assumptions that were repeated in the past. Because of this, there can sometimes be a period where the inner state has changed, but the external world has not yet caught up. This is the moment where persistence becomes essential. Instead of reacting to current appearances with doubt or frustration, the mind must continue returning to the calm certainty that the desired reality is already forming. When the new belief is maintained consistently, the external world eventually begins adjusting to match it. Persistence does not mean forcing thoughts or constantly battling negative ideas. It simply means gently guiding your attention back to the identity you have chosen to adopt. Whenever doubt appears, you calmly return to the feeling of financial security and abundance. Whenever circumstances seem uncertain, you remind yourself that your inner state is the true creative force shaping your experience. By repeatedly choosing the same empowering assumption, you strengthen the new mental pattern until it becomes your natural way of thinking. The mind learns through repetition and familiarity. When a person repeatedly returns to the feeling of already being wealthy, that emotional state gradually becomes comfortable and normal. At first, the idea may feel unfamiliar because it challenges years of previous thinking. However, as the assumption is revisited day after day, the subconscious mind begins accepting it as truth. Once the subconscious accepts the new identity, it starts influencing behavior, perception, and decision making in ways that align with that belief. Persistence also changes how you interpret challenges or delays. Instead of viewing them as proof that your desire is impossible, you begin seeing them as temporary condition, ones that have no real power over your inner state. Your confidence remains steady because it is no longer dependent on immediate external validation. This stability allows you to move through life with patience and clarity. Rather than reacting emotionally to every circumstance, you continue thinking from the perspective of someone whose wealth and success are already secure. Another powerful result of persistence is the gradual strengthening of belief. Each time you return to the assumption of abundance, the idea becomes more convincing and natural. The mind stops questioning it and begins accepting it as a normal part of your identity. Once this happens, your thoughts, emotions, and actions start aligning automatically with that belief. Decisions become easier, opportunities feel more natural, and progress begins unfolding without the sense of struggle that often accompanies doubt. Over time, the consistent practice of returning to the feeling of already being wealthy reshapes the entire mental landscape. The old patterns of worry, limitation, and fear lose their influence because they are no longer reinforced. Instead, the mind becomes familiar with confidence, security, and expectation of success. As this internal stability grows stronger, the external world gradually begins reflecting the same qualities. Persistence is therefore the bridge between imagination and reality. It ensures that the new identity you choose is not temporary, but firmly established within your consciousness. Within your consciousness. By continuing to return to the feeling and assumption of already being wealthy, regardless of temporary appearances, you allow your inner conviction to become so strong that the outer world eventually reorganizes itself to match the reality you have consistently accepted within your mind. In the end, the power to transform your financial reality does not begin in the outside world. T begins within your own mind. When you change the way you think about wealth, you begin changing the direction of your entire life. By refusing to think from lack, adopting the identity of someone who already lives in abundance, and feeling the calm certainty that wealth belongs to you, you reshape the inner foundation that creates your experiences. Your subconscious gradually accepts these repeated assumptions and begins guiding your thoughts, actions, and perceptions toward opportunities that align with prosperity. That why self new alternative? As your inner state becomes stable and confident, life starts reflecting that new identity through ideas, connections, and circumstances that support your growth. The key is persistence, continuing to return to the mindset of abundance regardless of temporary appearances. When your thoughts, emotions, and identity remain aligned with wealth, the reality you once imagined begins unfolding naturally around you.